Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Thursday, December 13th, 2018. I'm going to go over what's gone on in the winter meetings over the last 24 hours or so. Discuss last night's college basketball, NBA, and NHL games. Look ahead to tonight's slate in each of those three sports. So my power rankings for NBA and NHL, and then I'll give out my best bet, which is indeed the Thursday night pick. All right, here we go. Winter meetings. Before we get into today's big move, a couple things. The Tampa Bay Rays signed Charlie Morton 2 years, $30 million, and then there's a vesting option in the contract as well. Good signing for Tampa. He could slide right in as their number 2, number 3 type of starter. I had a feeling they'd come away with either an above average good arm or a mediocre arm like a Lance Lynn, who signed with the Texas Rangers 3 years, $30 million. To me, that's a shocker. I don't think Lance Lynn deserved 3 years and $30 million. That was just an awful signing by the Rangers. But if he pitches well, he'll be trade bait. The Detroit Tigers signed Jordy Mercer to a 1-year contract to be their shortstop for now. The Reds acquired Tanner Roark from the Washington Nationals, so he'll slide in that rotation as a mid-rotation guy. The Reds are looking at other options to improve their rotation. They're looking at Dallas Keuchel. They're looking at some other ideas, some trades. That's a team that's looking to improve their entire team. And then the Los Angeles Angels signed Justin Bour to a 1-year contract. That's a good signing for LA. He can mash home runs. And I think he'll help that lineup. And it will be a good protection for Mike Trout. Late last night, the New York Mets re-signed Jesus Familia, 3 years, $30 million, the same contract that Lance Lynn got. I thought that was a little bit of an overpay by the Mets. Instead of their closer, he becomes their 8th inning guy. So the Mets get back their ex-closer. The Dodgers signed Joe Kelly, 3 years, $25 million. Appropriate contract for Kelly. I thought he'd get somewhere close to that, like $27 million, but good signing for LA. He could slide in as a 7th, 8th inning guy as a bridge to Kenley Jansen as the reigning champs lose a key piece. And the big one today, about a couple hours ago, the Indians trade Edwin Encarnacion to the Seattle Mariners for Carlos Santana. And there's a third team in there, the Tampa Bay Rays, who send Jake Bauers to the Cleveland Indians as Yandy Diaz and Cole Sulser go to the Tampa Bay Rays. And then there's money thrown around this trade too. And that, to me, is a surprising trade from a Rays standpoint. Yandy Diaz is not a great baseball player. Jake Bauers could be a great baseball player. I mean, Yandy Diaz too, but you never know. But Jake Bauers showed me a lot last year, and I think, is the steal in this trade for Cleveland. And he'll probably have a breakout year on the Indians. He's going to be their third baseman. Santana's their DH now. And then the left side of the infield is going to be Jose Ramirez, Francisco Lindor. At second right now, unless he's traded, Jason Kipnis. So I really, really think the Indians come away with the winners of that deal. And then I mentioned yesterday on the podcast how the Yankees were close to bringing back J Happ, which it's not official yet. They have to take somebody off their 40-man roster in order to do it. J Happ, 2 years, $34 million with a 3rd-year vesting option. That's a good signing for the Yankees. They got it at what they wanted. 3rd year's not guaranteed. So the Phillies miss out on Happ. So the way they have to improve their rotation is either sign Dallas Keuchel or go the trade market. I think Keuchel will end up a Philadelphia Philly. The owner came out and said he's going to spend stupid money, and I can see him getting Keuchel at like 6 years, $120 million. And that would indeed be stupid money. And I made a prediction a couple times on this podcast saying that Keuchel would land in Philadelphia. I just think that's a great fit for him. Slide him as your number 3 guy behind Jake Arrieta and Aaron Nola. And that would be a good top 3. Although that Washington 3 with Patrick Corbin added with Steven Strasburg and Max Scherzer is pretty darn good too. There's going to be more moves to come. The winter meetings ends today. But that doesn't mean that the offseason's over. The 2 best free agents, arguably in baseball history, and Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, are still on the market. And also still on the market. I mentioned Keuchel. You have relievers still on the market. Adam Ottavino, David Robertson, Zach Britton. Kelvin Herrera is a guy I really like and could be a sleeper free agent. One of my sleeper free agents came off the board in Justin Bour. Like I said, I thought that was a steal for the Los Angeles Angels. And my sleeper reliever, as I said, is Kelvin Herrera. I think he'll be a steal for somebody. And then starting pitchers, I think Wade Miley could be a possible steal because of how good he was with the Milwaukee Brewers last year. Or even Anibal Sanchez, who had a phenomenal year with the Braves this past year. But I feel better about Miley than I do about Sanchez. Let's move on from winter meetings. We'll talk about more baseball moves as the winter goes on. College basketball had some interesting results last night. Number 11, Texas Tech defeats Northwestern State 79-44. Texas Tech 9-0, Northwestern State 2-8. Number 24, Houston defeats LSU 82-76. Houston 9-0, LSU 7-3. Indiana Purdue defeats Indiana Northwest 116-79. Indiana Purdue improves to 7-3. Boston College defeats Columbia 82-73. BC is 72, Columbia is 3-7. Louisville defeats Lipscomb 72-68. Louisville 7-3, Lipscomb 7-3. Temple defeats UMass 65-63. Temple 8-2, UMass 6-5. Stony Brook defeats LIU Brooklyn 83-79. Stony Brook 9-2, LIU 5-5. Fairleigh Dickinson defeats Army 93-84. FDU 4-4, Army 5-7. Georgia State defeats Chattanooga 95-88. Georgia State 7-3. Chattanooga 5-6. Rider defeats Norfolk State 81-71. Rider 3-3. Norfolk 4-7. Hartford defeats Bryant 91-74. Hartford 4-7. Bryant 2-7. UNC Greensboro defeats Coppin State 77-54. UNC Greensboro 9-2. Coppin is 0-12. Presbyterian kills VMI 103-70. Presbyterian 5-5. VMI 5-7. Ole Miss defeats Southeast Louisiana 69-47. Ole Miss 7-2. Southeast Louisiana 4-5. Wichita State defeats Jacksonville State 69-65. Wichita 5-4. Jacksonville State 5-4. DePaul defeats Chicago State 104-70. DePaul 6-2. Chicago State 3-9. Murray State defeats Southern Illinois 80-52. Murray State is 6-1. Southern Illinois is 7-4. South Dakota defeats Beluve 78-52. South Dakota is 5-5. BYU defeats Portland State 85-66. BYU 8-4. Portland State 5-4. Boise State defeats Alabama State 67-57. Boise State 4-5. Alabama State 2-5. Oregon defeats San Diego 65-55. Oregon 6-3. San Diego 8-3. Troy defeats Carver 88-43 as Troy goes to 4-5. And last but not least, San Diego State defeats Cal State Dominican Hills 99-46 as San Diego State improves to 6-4. Going on right now, almost final, believe it or not. Oh, not final. Yeah, it could go to overtime. St. Edwards is tied with Rice at 73 apiece. And North Alabama is currently playing Huntington with North Alabama up 71-50. 5 o'clock, you have Kennesaw State at Gardner-Webb. 7 o'clock, Maryland Eastern at Duquesne. Milwaukee at UMKC. North Florida at FIU. Boston University and Dartmouth. Campbell hosts Central Penn. Longwood hosts Everett. Wright State hosts Northwest Ohio. Morehead State at Sanford. NC Central at McNeese at 7:30. And Wisconsin hosts Savannah State. Wisconsin's now 16. That's 8 o'clock, as well as New Orleans at Tulsa. Jackson State hosts Millsaps. 10 o'clock Eastern Washington and San Francisco, Mississippi Valley State and Santa Clara, and Lamar at CSU Bakersfield. NBA was a big slate last night. The Cavaliers defeat the Knicks 113-106. Cavs end the game on an 8-0 run. They improved to 7-21. Knicks dropped to 8-21. Jordan Clarkson had 28 points off the bench. Colin Sexton had 19. Rodney Hood had 23. And then off the bench, Matthew Dellavedova in his first home game back in Cleveland had 15. Meanwhile, for New York, Enes Kanter and Tim Hardaway Jr. each had 20. Kevin Knox, getting the start at small forward, gets 19 points and 7 rewards, so a good game for him in his first start. Emmanuel Mudiay, 16. Frankie Ntilikina off the bench had 16. In some little Knicks news, Alonzo Trier was signed to an NBA contract for 2 years. Well-deserved for him. He's played very well with the Knicks, although right now he's injured. They released Ron Baker to clear room. That was an excellent move by Scott Perry and Steve Mills in proving they get a steal as an undrafted free agent with Alonzo Trier. That rookie class is great that they have. Kevin Knox improving these past couple weeks. Mitchell Robinson has been very, very promising, although he's raw. And then you have Trier, who was undrafted and has hit some big shots for the Knicks this year in games that they've won. The Hornets defeat the Pistons 108-107. Hornets 14-13. Detroit 13-13. Fun game. Blake Griffin blows an opportunity for the Pistons to take the lead, and then that leads to a game-winning shot by Jeremy Lamb, who had 13 points in the game. Kemba Walker at 31, Cody Zeller at 12. Off the bench, Willie Hernan-Gomez at 13, and Tony Parker at 16. Griffin, I mentioned him, he had 26. Andre Drummond had 14 with 13 boards. Reggie Jackson had 18. Off the bench, Langston Galloway had 17. The Pacers defeat the Bucks 113-97. Oladipo is back. Pacers are 18-10. Milwaukee drops to 18-9. Oladipo in his return game, 12 points, 10 boards, 6 assists. Only played 29 minutes. Thaddeus Young had 25. Miles Turner had 23 with 7 boards. Bojan Bogdanovic had 16. Off the bench, Domantas Sabonis had 12 points and 10 boards, and Doug McDermott had 12. Giannis Antetokounmpo had a poor game, 12 points, 10 boards, 7 assists. Actually, you just didn't even say poor. He just didn't have that great of numbers. He had 5 fouls, shot 4 for 7, 31 minutes. It's not the prettiest game. Let's just put it kindly for Giannis. Chris Middleton had 10, Brook Lopez had 15, Eric Bledsoe had 26, and their bench didn't do much. The Nets upset the 76ers 127-124, Brooklyn 11-18, Philly 19-10. Spencer Dinwiddie, 39 points off the bench for Brooklyn. Joe Harris had 14, D'Angelo Russell had 12, Allen Crabbe had 20, and also off the bench for Brooklyn, Rodions Carusis had 13. No Jimmy Butler yesterday for the Sixers. Explains why they fell short. Joel Embiid had 33 points and 7 boards with 6 assists. Ben Simmons, 22 points, 8 boards, 7 assists. JJ Redick had 11. He had a poor game. And with 18 points getting the start for Jimmy Butler, Furkan Korkmaz. And off the bench, Landry Shamet had 10 and TJ McConnell had 17. The Celtics defeat the Wizards 130-125 in overtime. This was a fun game. Celtics are 17-10, Wizards 11-17. Kyrie Irving, 38 points and 7 assists. Jason Tatum had 12 points and 12 boards. Markieff Morris had 27. That's Marcus Morris with 9 boards. Marcus Smart had 18, and off the bench, Terry Rozier had 10. Markieff Morris actually had 11 points off the bench. Kelly Oubre, 20 points off the bench. Jeff Green had 22. John Wall had 34 with 13 assists, and Bradley Beal had 22. The Grizzlies defeat the Trailblazers 92-83. As Memphis improves to 16-11, Portland drops to 15-13. Mike Conley had 23. Jaren Jackson Jr. had 14. Jermichael Green had 12 off the bench, and Marshawn Brooks had 13 off the bench. C.J. McCollum had 40 points. Damian Lillard had 14. Alfred Camino had 10, and the bench didn't do anything. The Pelicans defeat the Thunder 118-114, as I predicted on the podcast. As New Orleans improves to 15-15, OKC drops to 17-9. Anthony Davis was the best player on the court. 44 points, 18 boards. Julius Randle, 22 points and 12 boards. Drew Holiday had 20 points and 10 assists. And off the bench, Darius Miller had 10. Paul George had 25 with 11 boards and 5 assists. Steven Adams and Russell Westbrook each had 20. And Dennis Schroeder off the bench had 24. The Mavericks defeat the Hawks 114-107 as Dallas improves to 15-11. Atlanta drops to 6-21. Harrison Barnes had 25. Luka Doncic, 24 points, 10 boards, 6 assists. DeAndre Jordan had 11 with 11 boards. Dorian Finney-Smith had 11 off the bench. J.J. Barea had 18 off the bench. John Collins had 20 points and 17 boards. He's played well for the Hawks since he's come back. Trae Young had 24 points and 10 assists. Ken Bazemore had 22. Kevin Huerter had 19. Bench didn't do anything. The Jazz destroy the Heat, 111-84. Utah, 14-15. Miami, 11-16. Donovan Mitchell, 21 points. Rudy Gobert and Joe Ingles each had 10. Off the bench, Dante Exum had 14. Kyle Korver had 16, including 4 3-pointers. He's been a good addition for Utah. Ronnie McGruder had 16, and Josh Richardson had 11. Off the bench, Kelly Olynyk had 14. Bad loss for Miami. The Kings defeated the Timberwolves 141-130 as Sacramento improves to 15-12. Minnesota drops to 13-15. Nemanja Bjelica, 25 points and 5 boards, including 4 3-pointers. Willie Cauley-Stein had 14 with 8 boards. De'Aaron Fox had 13 with 8 assists. Buddy Hield had 20. Marvin Bagley off the bench, 17 points, 10 boards. Yogi Ferrell off the bench had 17. And also off the bench, Bogdan Bogdanovic had 20. Andrew Wiggins had 25. Karl Anthony Towns had 19 with 11 boards. Jeff Teague had 12 with 13 assists. Robert Covington had 17. Dario Saric off the bench had 18. Derrick Rose off the bench had 20. And what was the most highly anticipated game of the night, the Toronto Raptors, without Kawhi Leonard, defeat the Golden State Warriors at full strength, 113-93. Toronto improves to 23-7. Golden State drops to 19-10. Phenomenal win for Toronto. All 5 starters scored in double digits. The bench didn't do much. They didn't need the bench to do anything. Serge Ibaka, 20 with 12 boards. Pascal Siakam, to me, who's the favorite for most improved player right now, 13. 23 with 12 assists and 5 boards for Kyle Lowry. Fred VanVleet had 10, and Danny Green had 15. Meanwhile, for Golden State, Kevin Durant had 30. Steph Curry only had 10. Bad game for him. Klay Thompson had 14. Rough game for him. And Quentin Cook off the bench had 13. Only 4 games tonight. TNT, 8 o'clock. Lakers-Rockets. That is the best game on the board, in my opinion. I think the Lakers will win the game. They've been the better team lately. LeBron is going to be motivated to play against James Harden and Chris Paul, although those 2 guys will be motivated to play against LeBron, so there's a case to be made for Houston. I don't get why Houston's a 5.5-point favorite. I think this line should be 3. I am taking the Lakers to win the game outright as a 5.5-point underdog. 8:30 of the Clippers and the Spurs. From Mexico City at 9:30, you have the Bulls and the Magic, 2 bad teams there. And then 10:30 on TNT, you have the Mavericks and the Suns. So that's Luka Doncic against DeAndre Ayton. I think the Mavericks win that game. Although I don't feel great about it. This is an opportunity for the Suns to take advantage of a team that I think is peeking ahead a little bit. That's on the second of a back-to-back, barely beat Atlanta. They needed a big fourth quarter to beat the Hawks. But I'm going to take the Mavs. I don't think they'll win by double digits. I wouldn't rule out the Suns covering. I think the Suns will hang around. They hung around with the Clippers the other day. They tend to hang around with teams at home where they can get blown out at home. The Spurs blew them out on their home floor. I believe that was an ESPN game a few weeks ago. And I believe the Mavs and the Suns faced off against one another on opening night. Or opening week, I should say. That was, let's see when that was. I think it was October 17th. The Suns killed the Mavs, 121-100. So this is the second time the Mavs are in Phoenix this year. And they're going to get revenge on the Suns in a game which the Mavs are a better team now than they were in the beginning of the year. Dirk Nowitzki's coming back tonight for Dallas. That's a underrated story. Dirk's going to be coming off the bench, as he should be. He's a veteran. This is his last rodeo. And I wouldn't rule out the Suns doing something special for him, like the Lakers did with Dwayne Wade the other day. So that's something to keep an eye on, too. Let's move on to hockey, in which that slate wasn't big last night, although tonight's slate's pretty big. The Golden Knights defeat the Islanders 3-2 as the Golden Knights improved to 18-14-1. Islanders 14-12-4. Number one star of the game with a goal, Tomas Nosek, and the number two star of the game with 2 assists, Matthew Barzal, and the number 3 star of the game with the goal, William Karlsson. The Blackhawks defeated the Penguins 6-3. Big win for Chicago. Feel-good win on national television. Bad loss for Pittsburgh, who drops to 13-11-6. Chicago goes to 10-18-5. Number one star of the game with the goal and an assist, Andreas Martinson. Number 2 star of the game with the goal and an assist, Marcus Kruger. And the number 3 star of the game with a hat trick, Brian Rust. The Flames defeat the Flyers 6-5 in overtime. Great come-from-behind win for Calgary last night. Number 1 star of the game with 2 goals and an assist, Sean Monahan. The number 2 star of the game with the 2 goals and an assist, Sean Couturier. Number 3 star of the game with 4 assists, Matthew Tkachuk. Calgary goes to 20-10-2, and Philadelphia drops to 12-13-4. The Ducks defeat the Stars 6-3. The Ducks improved to 17-11-5. I like how they've been playing lately. And Dallas drops to 16-12-3. Number 1 star of the game with the hat trick, Ondrej Kase. Number 2 star of the game with 2 assists, Ryan Getzlaf. And the number 3 star of the game with the goal, Jacob Silfverberg. Tonight's slate, like I said, is a little bigger. 7 o'clock. Coyotes, Sabres, Kings, Blue Jackets, 7:30. Hurricanes, Canadians, Maple Leafs, Lightning. Maple Leafs, Lightning is a great game. I'm surprised NBCSN doesn't have the Thursday night game this week with that matchup, because it's obviously Austin Matthews and John Tavares against Steven Stamkos. 8 o'clock, you have the Canucks at the Predators, the Panthers at the Wild, the Oilers at the Jets, and at 10:30, the Stars and the Sharks. So a nice slate tonight, some good teams. Very looking forward to it. I'm actually going to do the NHL power rankings first because we're on the subject of NHL. I'm going to go for 31-1 as I do each and every week I do this. Number 31 is the Los Angeles Kings. They are just not a very good hockey team. They're probably going to be a seller at the deadline. 30 is the Chicago Blackhawks. Last night's win's the sole reason why they're not number 31. Number 29 is St. Louis Blues. A report came out this week that everyone on their team is available, including Vladimir Tarasenko. And I think Tarasenko would be a hot commodity at the trade deadline this year. He's by far going to be the best player available via trade, and it won't be close. 28 is the New Jersey Devils. No way they trade Taylor Hall, but if that were the case, then it would be competition for the best player available at the deadline. Tarasenko's the biggest one right now, but I don't see the Devils trading Hall, although they're trending in the direction of possibly being a seller at the deadline after being a buyer last year. 27 is the Philadelphia Flyers. Just a brutal collapse last night. Maybe they're a seller at the deadline. Wayne Simmons is a player that could be available. 26 is the Ottawa Senators. In my opinion, one of the bigger surprises in the league. There's a lot of conversation about Mark Stone and Matt Duchene. If I'm them, I trade Matt Duchene and get the best value back for him because no way he re-signs in Ottawa. You gave up an unprotected first-round pick to get him in the first place. And I think that they should absolutely trade Duchene. You'll get a first-round pick back for him. And there'll be plenty of contenders happy with his presence. Number 25 is the Detroit Red Wings. They've been Jekyll and Hyde a little bit. Another big surprise in my opinion. The team has played better than I thought. 24 is the Arizona Coyotes. They're very Jekyll and Hyde. Talk about Jekyll and Hyde. 23 is the Carolina Hurricanes. They're another team that fits that Jekyll and Hyde mode too. To me, they're a bit of an underachiever. I think they're a candidate to make a panic trade for somebody. 22 is the New York Rangers. They've fallen off after a hot start. I've talked about Matt Duchene a lot and how they should absolutely trade him. The Rangers, I feel the same way about Kevin Hayes. I just don't think that he's a franchise player. And if the Rangers can get a first-round pick or more for him, then I'd pull the gun and do it. And I think that's what Jeff Gorton is ultimately going to do unless he signs him to a contract extension. 21 is the Florida Panthers. To me, one of the biggest disappointments in the league so far. Number 20 is the New York Islanders. Like the Rangers, a team that's fallen off after a hot start. 19, the Canucks, same mold as Rangers. Islanders had a hot start, have fallen off. But they have Elias Pettersson, who is a franchise player. And probably, right now, you have to say the best player from last year's draft. If you had to do a redraft from 2017, he goes 1. No debate. He goes 1. Nico Hirschier's going to be a good player, but Pettersson's better. Nolan Patrick's disappointed, but Pettersson's better. I'm going to be doing redrafts again next year. I know I did them earlier on the year on the podcast, but I can't wait to do them again, especially the ones from between 2018 and 2013 in all 4 of the major sports, because so much has changed. Number 18 is the Montreal Canadiens, who have been a big surprise early on. They're actually in the second wild card right now. I don't think that's going to last. They got Shea Weber back. That should help them. 17 is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Just a terrible loss last night, or else they would have been higher on this list. They've made some weird trades so far this year. 16 is the Minnesota Wild. I think they'll be in this thing all year long. Number 15 is the Dallas Stars. That was a rough loss last night, but they're still a decent team. 14 is the Edmonton Oilers. They've been playing a lot better since Keith Hitchcock has been behind the bench. Number 13 is the San Jose Sharks. They've been playing a little better lately too. Number 12 is the Columbus Blue Jackets. They've fallen off a little bit after the Capitals have blew right by them for first place in that division. Number 11 is the Boston Bruins. They've definitely underachieved, in my opinion, so far this year. They're in that first wild card right now as we speak. 10 is the Anaheim Ducks. I mentioned it a few minutes ago. I just like how they've been playing. They've played very well on the road, on the East Coast, and then they come home and beat the Stars and come from behind. And this team, I think, has a chance to win that division. 9 is the Colorado Avalanche. They're off to a good start this year. I think they have the best asset in the NHL right now, which is the Ottawa first-round pick. I think Ottawa falls apart, and that pick eventually turns into a good one, potentially a great one. And I think if Colorado really wants to be serious about winning the Cup this year, then I think if I'm them, I'd trade that pick to get an elite defenseman or even an elite forward if the right one's available for them in the right deal. 8 is the Vegas Golden Knights. Like Anaheim, they've been playing great hockey. And like Anaheim, I think they have a chance to win this division. I think this division's wide open. I think it's a 3-team horse between Vegas, Anaheim, and obviously San Jose. I had San Jose winning the division before the year. I guess I'll stick to that prediction because of their blue line and Martin Jones. And they have firepower offensively too. But you can certainly argue for Anaheim and Vegas. And Vegas has definitely turned it around after their disappointing start. 7, the Buffalo Sabres. They've been a little mediocre since their big winning streak ended. That was a nice come-from-behind win against the Kings the other day. Number 6 is the Washington Capitals. They've pulled away from the pack in the Metro Division right now. They look like the favorites to win that division yet again. 5 is the Winnipeg Jets, who have been like a weirdish sort of team. They almost lost to the Blackhawks a few days ago. I believe that was in Chicago, though. Number 4 is the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have a big one tonight in Tampa Bay. 3 is the Nashville Predators. They no longer have the best record in the West. They've been a little mediocre lately. 2 is the Calgary Flames, now with the most amount of points in the West. Good for them. Big come-from-behind win last night against the Flyers. And the number 1 team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, who obviously have the most points in the NHL and have a big one tonight at home against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now I'm going to switch over to the NBA. I'm going to go from 30 to 1. Number 30 is the Chicago Bulls. If you lose by 50 plus at home, you deserve to be on the bottom of the list until further notice. 29 is the Phoenix Suns. You could argue this is the worst team in the NBA. They're certainly the worst team in the West. 28 is the Atlanta Hawks. They hung around with Dallas last night. Trae Young has been hot and cold. 27 is the New York Knicks. If they beat the Cavs last night, they'd be 26 and not 27. They're clearly tanking, just like the Cavs at 26. But the Cavs were out-tanked by the Knicks, as people following the sport would know, and teams that are clearly trying to go for the lottery picks. Those are clearly the worst 5 teams in the NBA that I just rattled off, and 4 of them are in the East. And who knows, the Knicks can put themselves out of it if Kristaps Porzingis comes back this year. And Cleveland, Colin Sexton's kind of like Trae Young, has been kind of on and off. And speaking of young rookies, Kevin Knox has played great for the Knicks since a scout said to the New York Post's Mark Berman, who was a guest on my podcast a few years ago, that a scout told Berman that Kevin Knox was soft and didn't seem happy. Ever since then, Kevin Knox has gone on a tear and has played himself into David Fizdale's starting lineup, which I think should have been the case in the first place, and Knox is proving that he should be a starter for now. And 25 is the Miami Heat. I probably should have them below the Cavs and the Knicks. That was just a terrible loss against the Utah Jazz last night. Number 24 is the Brooklyn Nets. You can tell that they're trying to tank too, but they somehow hung on against Philly. Although Philly didn't have Jimmy Butler, or else I'd say Philly wins that game. Number 23 is the Minnesota Timberwolves. I made a case about a Ewing theory without Jimmy Butler, but they're 2 games under 500. Number 22 is the Washington Wizards. I like how they've been playing lately. They shouldn't tank. They should go for the playoff spot, because I think the East is wide open. The Miami Heat are obviously disappointing. Those 4 or even 5 tanking teams, the 5 being Brooklyn, assuming that that's the direction they go in. I think the Wizards should hold on to John Wall and Bradley Beal for now and gun for the playoff spot. But if they go on a bad losing streak this month or in January and see themselves 5 games out, then you blow it up. But yes, they lost last night, but I like how they've been playing. They should have won last night. But John Wall was limping around in that game, and he played great, I thought, in that game last night. But the other truth of the matter is that Kyrie Irving single-handedly won that game for Boston last night. And they'll get to the Celtics in a minute. But that's just my take on the Wizards. 21's the Magic. I feel like they'll end up in that group of teams with the Knicks and the Nets and the Cavs and the Hawks eventually. But Steve Clifford has them playing really well. They've caught some breaks in their schedule. I just don't think this team's very good. Terrence Ross was mentioned in a trade rumor the other day. I think he's a candidate to be traded this year. He's having a good season. 20s of the Detroit Pistons. They've lost 6 straight. Blake Griffin choked at the free throw line last night, or else I don't know if they would have won that game. It would have gave them the lead, and then Charlotte would have hit the go-ahead shot anyway, so maybe they still lose that game. But certainly would have had a better chance to win if Griffin had made those 2 free throws last night. 19's the Utah Jazz. They're out of the bottom 10 as they get the big win over the Miami Heat. They also got a big win at home against the Rockets last Thursday night on TNT. I think this team is heading in the right direction. Rudy Gobert healthy, Donovan Mitchell getting healthy. Kyle Korver's been a good pickup for them. Number 18 is the San Antonio Spurs. They've been playing good basketball of late. That was an impressive win over the Lakers last week at home after losing to the Lakers early last week. And then they killed the Suns, but then again, everyone's been killing the Suns this year. But I think that's a team that's arrows pointing up rather than down. 17's the New Orleans Pelicans. That was a big win last night at home against OKC, one that I predicted on the podcast. Anthony Davis, to me, has to be considered among the favorites for the MVP right now. 16's the Charlotte Hornets. That was a big win last night. I think this team absolutely should be going for the playoffs. I think they'll make it too. Number 15's the Portland Trailblazers. Boy, is that team falling apart. They had the best record in the West a few weeks ago. Now they're not even in the playoff spot. Boy, have times changed. Number 14's the Sacramento Kings. They're 2 games over 500. They got a big win last night over the Timberwolves. That was weird. They were an underdog in that game, which they obviously shouldn't have been. 13's the Houston Rockets. Since Chris Paul's come back, this team's playing a lot better. Other than losing to the Mavericks and the Jazz. That was a big win over Portland. I think that this team will eventually be right. Number 12, speaking of the Mavericks, they're at 12. This is probably too high. Luka Doncic has been phenomenal. This might be a surprise playoff team in the West this year. Luka Doncic, to me, is the runaway favorite for the Rookie of the Year, and it's not close. Don't even make cases for Ayton and others at this point. Luka Doncic, I think, has that on lockdown, and it's not even 2019 yet. 11 is the Memphis Grizzlies, another big surprise in the Western Conference this year. Jaren Jackson Jr. has had a big impact on that team as a rookie. Mike Conley, Marc Gasol, rejuvenated and healthy. Number 10 is the Boston Celtics. That was a big win last night in D.C. in a game which they should have lost. Kyrie Irving won that game by himself. He had a 3-pointer from almost half court, which was the game-winning shot in that game. And this team, I think, has the up arrow next to them. Their offense has been a lot better since making changes in that starting lineup with Jaylen Brown coming off the bench after he was hurt. I'm interested to see how this team performs. Number 9 is the Indiana Pacers. Big win last night against the Milwaukee Bucks. Victor Oladipo is back. I probably should have the Pacers ahead of the Bucks because they beat them head-to-head last night. I can't really judge it on one game because I just don't think Giannis Antetokounmpo should be 9th. I should say Giannis Antetokounmpo's team should be 9th on there. There was just one bad performance from the Bucks and one great performance by Indiana. But that's it. Indiana belongs in my top 10. They're a good basketball team. Oladipo's back finally. And I think this team has a chance to be a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference if the Celtics thing is a mirage by some weird way. Number 8 is Los Angeles Clippers. They probably should be higher than this, but that was just a terrible loss to the Raptors the other night without Kawhi Leonard at home. But then again, they did the same thing to the best team in the NBA on paper last night too, and that team was at full strength. Meanwhile, the Clippers were missing people in the Raptors game. Number 7 is the Denver Nuggets. I like how this team's been playing. They had that big win over the Lakers a few weeks ago. Although I think they lost in Memphis, but that's okay. Memphis is a good home team. No shame in losing in Memphis this year, for at least for now. Number 6 is the Los Angeles Lakers. I like how this team's been playing. That was a big win over the Miami Heat, a game in which they had to have. They had that bad loss in San Antonio. I like how they've been playing since then. LeBron James to me is the front runner for the MVP right now. Number 5 is the Milwaukee Bucks. You could argue about Giannis being the MVP front runner, but LeBron James in the Western Conference with that young Lakers team has been the difference and a bigger difference maker than Giannis in a weak Eastern Conference. Although Giannis has been phenomenal this year, I just give a slim edge to LeBron for MVP right now. Although that could change with a couple weird injuries. And I just didn't like how Giannis played last night, but I don't want to overreact to one game. They got blown out. And I still think this is a good basketball team, nevertheless. And I expect them to be a top 4 in the East all year. Number 4 is the Philadelphia 76ers. Bad loss last night to the Nets, but they didn't have Jimmy Butler. This team with Jimmy Butler and with Joel Embiid on the court, they're great. Number 3 is the Golden State Warriors. Bad loss last night at full strength at home against the Raptors without Kawhi Leonard. That was just a bad loss for the Warriors. No other words to say it. If they had Kawhi, I'm talking about the Raptors, then I'd give the Warriors some pass. But they don't deserve a pass. You're the 2-time reigning champion at full strength, and you lose at home to a great team. Don't get me wrong, but they were without their best player, and you lost by 20. 20. But that said, the Warriors are still the Warriors. They're still great. It was just one bad game. Maybe I'm overreacting a little bit. And that was a much-needed win over Minnesota the other day. Interested to see how this goes. Number 2 is the Oklahoma City Thunder. They deserve to be ahead of the Warriors, although the Thunder did lose to the Bulls. I believe that was last week. Or it could have been the week before. I think it actually was last Friday night, because the Celtics killed the Bulls on Saturday. And this OKC team's been playing very well. Yeah, they lost yesterday, but I can't fault them. Anthony Davis had a monster game, so they don't deserve blame to losing to Anthony Davis in his home court. And number 1's the Toronto Raptors, no doubt about it. And they really are the best team right now, with or without Kawhi. Pascal Siakam has been the most improved player in the league right now. Serge Ibaka rejuvenated. And Kyle Lowry's been playing great basketball too. Fred VanVleet started last night. He provided good minutes for them, although I think he's better off coming off the bench. Jonas Valanciunas has been a bench player for them this year all of a sudden. I think he eventually becomes trade bait because it's just awkward. And I think that they can flip him into another swing guy off the bench. So keep an eye on that. And now for best bet and my Thursday night pick, give me the Kansas City Chiefs minus 3.5 over the Los Angeles Chargers. Courtesy of FanDuel, I am laying $1.30 to win $1.77. Or I'm sorry, laying $1 to win $1.77. It's minus 130. They're laying 3. No way this is a push. Andy Reid owns the Chargers. This is a night game. This reminds me of last year when the Chargers went to KC and everybody picked the Chargers and then the Chiefs came out and blew them out. This reminds me exactly of that, except the Chargers are a better team this year than they were last year. Chargers have a lot of injuries. No Austin Eckler, maybe no Melvin Gordon. Tyreek Hill will play for Kansas City. That's a plus. Damian Williams is running the ball very well. and I expect the Chiefs to go out there. I'm going to give you a final score. Let's go 38-31. I think that this game could be a blowout, and then there's a garbage touchdown at the end to make it a touchdown game. So that's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow giving you the rest of the Week 15 picks, baseball moves that could be made, college basketball, NBA, NHL, and any other news that breaks in the world of sports. Hope you guys have a great day, everybody.